It's time for the business news with Madison Reedy. Hi, Maddie. So,
Hello.
Tower Insurance, number of big announcements today. What have they got going?
Yeah, so first off, Tower Insurance, which is the listed insurer, has today announced that they're actually looking to acquire Tues Insurance for a price of $13 million. Now, Tues, you may have heard of it. It has 34,000 policyholders in this country. It's actually a South African-owned business, but its subsidiary in this country sells mostly car insurance as well as some house and contents insurance too. Now, under this proposed deal, Tues policyholders will keep their policies until they expire, and then they will be offered Tower policies instead. Now, we know that Tower's policies are priced based on risk. Now, this deal is obviously subject to regulatory approval from the insurance regulator, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, but Tower says that it is confident that it'll get the green light from the Reserve Bank by the end of this calendar year, even though it hasn't actually filed a formal application to go ahead with this deal. Come up in these discussions were Tower's capital requirements. Now, we talk about this quite a lot in business. Essentially what this is the safety net that insurers and also banks have to hold on to in their back pocket in the case of a large crisis or incident which would cause them to pay out a large number of claims. Now, this acquisition of Tues, or proposed acquisition, means that Tower would obviously have to increase its capital requirements because it will have more policies on its books, therefore will need a larger safety net. But interestingly, also, the Reserve Bank used this time to also tell Tower Insurance that it needs to remove a $53.1 million receivable, which is money that it's waiting to be paid, from its solvency capital measurements. Now, that's a payment that it's waiting on the Earthquake Commission to pay it. Now, it relates to payments that Tower made to residents impacted by the Canterbury earthquakes in 2011 and 2012. Now, Tower made payouts to these people based on the fact, to repair their homes and also the foundation, the land that their homes were on following the quakes. Now, they paid that out on the basis under this industry-wide agreement with the Earthquake Commission that they would later be reimbursed by the Earthquake Commission because these payments were being made on behalf of them. It was just the quickest way to do it. Now, the Tower Insurance has actually entered into a dispute resolution process with the Earthquake Commission over this disputed payment. And in fact, they've actually today threatened legal action, saying that this will probably play out in the courts. So because the delay, that will probably cause a delay of this payment, the Reserve Bank has said, hold on guys, you're actually going to need to take this off your solvency capital requirements, because if you go through the courts, it might take up to 4 years for you to see any money. Now, that has resulted in a licence change for Tower Insurance and increased their capital requirements. So it's having to raise $47.2 million on the stock exchange to fund that. Now, I spoke with Tower's Chief Executive, Richard Harding, earlier today. Now, he says all the while that this is going on, meanwhile, Tower is actually still getting claims from the EQC that are called overcap claims that are over $100,000 for so-called shoddy repair work following the Canterbury quakes. Now, he says that Tower has accepted some, in fact 45 of those in the past year, but it is actually pushing back really heavily on others, and he says that's because it's unacceptable that it is getting these claims still from the EQC when it's not even liable to pay them.
Look, I think the disappointment with that is that, again, we're being faced with a place where the EQC needs to take accountability for its own liability. Here we have damaged properties that are results of either negligence on behalf of the repairer or where they've been misscoped or identified in the first place by the EQC assessing process. And in those cases, we are just saying to the EQC, no more. That is not our accountability. Our policyholders and shareholders shouldn't have to pay for that. If you think about this in terms of costs, all of these costs go somewhere. They either go to Tower shareholders or we have to increase premiums to pay for it, right? That's the only two places that costs within a company can go. It's not appropriate that either of those parties bear the cost of the EQC. So we are pushing back very heavily to make sure that only those claims that we are truly liable for come to Tower and where we deal with our customers. A lot of the claims, about 75% of the claims that we receive from EQC at the moment, we push back and refuse to deal with it with the EQC.
That's the Chief Executive of Tower Insurance, Richard Harding.
And a tiny little bit of my heart dies when I hear, Madison, that a shoe company has gone into voluntary administration.
You and I both, Lisa. So this afternoon, Ziera Shoes has unfortunately gone into voluntary administration. It's also known to some people as the Cumps brand. Now, it was actually founded in 1946 and it has 122 stores in New Zealand with 140 staff here, a similar amount of stores and staff in Australia too. Administrators from McGrath-Nicol have been appointed today to its operations on both sides of the Tasman. Now, they've said today that its downfall was ultimately the fact that it was too slow to catch up with the changing retail trends, being online shopping and the like. And they say that they are going to keep its stores operating for the time being while they hunt for a buyer for either part or all of the business.
What else has been happening on the markets? Let's take a twirl around there.
The NZX Top 50 index has closed down just 0.1% tonight. That's a fall of 15 points to close at 10,858. The New Zealand dollar, that's buying at just under 63 US cents, 92.9 to the Australian and 50.7 British pence.
Thanks, Maddie. Madison Reedy with business there.